TheTidesChanging here, and welcome to another speed build. This one is a collaboration between myself and Kalixal, also known as Lee. I'm going to be building the house, and he's going to be furnishing it. He's doing a special event on his channel this week called Collab Week, where each day he does a collab with a different simmer, and a while ago he asked me to be a part of it. I will of course leave a link to his channel and the video of him furnishing this house in the description below. At this point, I haven't seen any of the furnishing that he's done, but I'm sure he'll do a fantastic job, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does with this house. As far as the house itself goes, I went about building this one differently than normal. So usually before I go into build, I have a really good idea of what I want to make, whether it be that I'm going to be basing the house off of a floor plan I found, or an image I found, or just a more fully fleshed out idea that I had myself. But with this house, I had hardly any idea of what I wanted to do when I went into it. All I knew was that I wanted there to be a lot of patio and deck space out behind the house. So that's why, rather than starting around the front of the house like I normally do, I just started with the back with creating the 2 floors worth of deck on top of each other, and then I just built around to the front, because originally more so what I was going for was just a vacation, like a lake vacation type house. But then when I got around to the front, what it ended up being was more of just a regular old suburban style house. So this house is sort of a mix of different styles, because in the back to me it reminds me of, I guess, a southern United States styled house, and then the front of it just looks like a suburban house. But I really like how it turned out, and I had a lot of fun just going in with not much of an idea of what I wanted to do and just seeing what came of it. So I think that's something I'm gonna do a bit more in the future, like just go in, build, see what happens without even having a plan. At this point, the structure and roof of the house is pretty much done. It didn't actually take me that long to do. It only took me maybe 15 to 20 minutes, which for me is really good, especially considering I had hardly any idea of what I wanted to do with this house going into it. Right now I'm starting on putting in the windows and doors, although I do take a break from that to move on to the floor plan inside, because I didn't want to put a big window in somewhere and then later on decide that's where I felt a bathroom should be. But the area I just put a bunch of floor-to-ceiling windows in, I imagined as more of a sunroom. There's also a half bath to the left of the front door as you go inside. And then right now I'm walling off what's going to be the study, and this house does have a pretty large study in it, and I ended up leaving everything else downstairs open. I figured it could be a nice open living area. For the upstairs, I was going to have this nice open foyer area up there, but then I deleted the wall, and then I realized that The Sims 4 does not like open areas, and there's a whole bunch of roofs going in there, so it just wasn't going to work out. But upstairs there are 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. Yeah, I think it's 3 bathrooms. So the master bedroom is of course the one that gets the nice deck outside of it, and then it of course has its own bathroom. One of the other bedrooms, I just gave its own bathroom. It's a little bit bigger than the other 2, and then the other 2 do share a bathroom that's out in the hall. That's it for the floor plan, and after that I went back to placing all the windows. And a chunk of the building unfortunately got left out by accident. What happened was my game minimized itself. I don't know if The Sims 4 does this to anyone else, but I'll be playing it and occasionally just minimize. And whenever it does that, I stop whatever recording I'm doing and then just restart it once I bring the game back up, because I had an issue in the past where I just brought the game back up and kept going on the same recording and then it just corrupted itself. So just so that doesn't happen, I just restarted. I forgot to restart it for a little bit, but at this point all the railings and such and windows and everything are in, so I'm starting on the wall coverings on the exterior. So with this house I wanted to have more than 1 or 2 wall coverings, which is what I normally do, so I was trying to figure out what kinds went together. I wanted to have some brick in there, some siding, maybe a couple different types of siding, and I actually spent an eternity on picking out the wall coverings. I think it felt like it was an hour, but I think it was more like half an hour just sitting there trying to figure out the wall coverings. I wanted to see what it would look like to have some trim separating 2 different kinds of wallpaper along the front of the house. And at first I picked out red as the second siding color because I wanted to have white as one of the siding colors and then just have sort of an accent color on some of the other walls. But then I didn't end up sticking with red because I felt like it was a little bit bold, and I wanted this house to have more of a light and bright type of a look to it, so I did eventually try out some blues and greens on the front of there as well, so try to see how it would look if I just had all white all over, like all white for the siding colors, but then I do end up going back to red. Like I said, I just spent so long going back and forth on this, and then I did cut a good bit of it out. I believe this was about the point where I finally ditched the red. Yeah, this is where I ditched the red and then just changed it all to blue. That was the second accent siding that I ended up sticking with, and one last thing I did was that I put brick on the lower part of the second, or the back bump out on the first floor, and then white siding on the roof, and then put some nice trim to separate it. I just thought that could be something to add a little bit of extra detail to the wall coverings on the front of the house. And I, of course, changed up the roof coverings on the house. I haven't even mentioned anything about the name of the house up to this point, so it is called Lakeside Haven, as you can see from the title of the video. So that isn't exactly the most creative name, and I'm not always the most creative with naming houses. Like, sometimes I'll get a good idea, and then other times I just have no idea what to call the house. And this was one of those times where I just really didn't know what to name it, so I was like, well, it's beside a lake, so Lakeside. And then the Haven part of it was because I just saw this as a house that you would really enjoy coming home to after a hard day of work. Because as you'll see once I start working on the backyard, it's very private, and it's got a pool, it's got a hot tub, and I could just see it being a very nice place to relax, like kind of your own little oasis since it is very private. But right now I'm working on doing the landscaping in the front yard, so I didn't really put a whole lot of landscaping in the front yard because I wanted to have like, I guess more so what you would see in the suburbs, where you might have a few trees and then some flower beds closer to the house, but then there's also a lot of open green space. And I did the same thing with the landscaping that I did in the last build, where I put down the light dirt first and then I used a darker dirt to create a border around it. And to me, that border gives the illusion that it's raised up a bit, so I just did the same thing on either side of the stairs going up to the front door, and that's about it for the landscaping that's in the front yard. Like I said, lots of nice open space in there, and the backyard does have some open space in it as well. It is a little bit more landscaped. That is it for the front yard, so now I'm moving around to the back of the house. I did the same thing on the other side of the sunroom with the dirt and the plants and everything. And the backyard, of course, took a lot longer to do than the front yard because there's a lot more going on back there. It's pretty well landscaped because I just wanted to give it this whole private oasis type feel. I started things off by putting some trees back there. I just really wasn't sure what to do with it at first, because I think when I first started the house up until this point, everything was done in one go. Like, I spent 2 or 3 hours straight working on it, and then I just kind of it wasn't coming to me as easily what to do after that, so I had to take a break. And then I came back, and then after that, I had figured out what I wanted to do with the backyard, but I was trying to figure out where to put the pool there, so I just had it right behind the deck. And oh yeah, this was the point where I came back later in the day and continued working on it, so I decided to put the nice hedge decorations that came with perfect patio stuff to use. Because the nice thing about them is that, unlike the regular fences, you can have them all the way on the edge of the lot, although I found that even with the move objects cheat on, they wouldn't place right at the edge, so I had to hold Alt down and place them just a little bit away from the edge of the lot, which got really frustrating and tedious because I had to sit there and make sure that they were all perfectly aligning, which is why you can kind of see me adjusting things. So it was rather unfortunate that it just wouldn't nicely snap to the edge of the lot, but yeah, there we go, the little fence is done. After putting the fence in, I thought it would look nicer if I expanded the garden that was behind the sunroom so that it covered the width of the fence back there. And wanted to have another oak tree on the other side of the house, and then I realized that that oak tree was turned the exact same way as the one on the front. I didn't want to have 2 trees of the same kind on the lot that were turned the exact same way. I don't know, just for whatever reason, that was a detail that bothered me. So here I go, putting all the plants in around that oak tree, and then I think pretty soon is where I go back and put the pool in, because I did delete what I had there before because I didn't like it. So we got a nice big pool, pretty much in the same spot as before, except that this time I just left it as a nice rectangular pool. And rather than having a whole concrete patio going from the stairs out to the pool, I decided to just have a one tile border of concrete right around the pool, and then I used the same brick path that I used around front to connect from the stairs to the pool, and I really like how that looks. I wanted to have a hot tub right next to the pool, and I figured a nice gazebo would be a good place to put that. So at first I was going for a gazebo that matched the house, like it used the same columns and railings and the same roof, the same siding, but then I didn't really like the look that, the look of the gazebo matching the house. So I did take a break while I was building, and I looked up some pictures of gazebos, and I saw these gazebos that had tin-hipped roofs and then what looked like metal columns and metal spandrels. So I was trying to replicate that look in here as best I could. So that's why you have the dark tin roof with a dark trim on it and the darker columns. And I was going for like an all-black look, but then I looked back at the pictures and I realized that those gazebos like that didn't have stairs, like they were just right off the ground. But I was trying to figure out how exactly to do that, so I found that if I just deleted the flooring and then kept the columns in, but then deleted the the foundation walls, that it would keep the columns up at that height, and then I could put another column on the ground. It would just look like columns going all the way from the ground up to the roof. So hopefully my explanation of that makes sense, but you can always kind of see what I did in the video if you want to figure out how to do that yourself. I really like how the gazebo turned out. I'm not sure if you would really still call it a gazebo, but I like how the darker colors on it contrast the lighter colors that are on the house. This would be a really nice backyard to have in real life, although it probably would take a lot of maintenance with all the landscaping, and then you've also got a pool and a hot tub. I know pools take a lot of work. I feel like pools are more fun when they're not yours. I had a pool growing up, and it was annoying. It was a pain in the butt. Hot tubs, I'm not so sure about. I'm guessing they also take a lot of work to maintain. I've never had one myself. On the other side of the pool, I added in some monkey bars for the kids with a nice stone path to connect it to the pool. So I could see this being a really nice house for a large family. I was going to put garden boxes in the space between the monkey bars and the house, but I decided to just leave it empty. I felt like it would make the yard a little bit more versatile, so if you have a sim who's into gardening, you can put some gardening boxes in there, or plants, or if you have a sim who's an astronaut, you can add a rocket, or one of the obnoxiously sized telescopes, or the microscope, or if you prefer to just have the yard nice and open, you can just leave it empty. So that does give you some space to fill out the yard based on the needs of the family you move in there. Right now I'm working on the nighttime lighting. And I did upload the unfurnished version of this to the gallery in case any of you would like to try furnishing it yourself. So I will of course have a link to that in the description. I'll probably also put a link to the furnished version that Lee does, so you can get both right from this video. But I'm just about done with all the nighttime lighting, so after that the only thing that's left to do is the furnishing on the decks, and also a trash can, because I do sometimes forget to put in trash cans. I don't think there's a mailbox on the slot either. I couldn't find one. I forgot to put one in, but you can pretty easily just add one in yourself. I changed the windows that were in what I imagined to be the living room, because originally they were the same windows that I used in the sunroom. And I look back on it, I realized that it was a bit too much white, and it would probably look better if I used the same types of windows on each of the floors. And I'm just finishing up furnishing the deck that's off the master bedroom. And I also put in the large table that came with perfect patio stuff in the area between the stairs and the pool. So part of why I wanted there to be a lot of deck space on this house was that I wanted to use a bunch of the items that came with the stuff pack, because this is the first build that I've started since it was released. So over here we have the grill with some of the knickknacks from the stuff pack. I left the area right in front of the living room pretty much empty, although that probably would have been a better space for the giant table, maybe. But I think where I had it was fine. Over in this area, I put in a chess table, used the chairs that came with perfect patio stuff, and I wasn't quite liking the wood that I had originally chosen for the decks. I felt like it's a little bit too light, so I was trying out some darker ones, like some really dark woods and some black color woods, and I sort of got stuck on that. Like, I was trying out new ones for a while, and then I was also messing with the brick, and I changed the roof to be scallop kind. I thought it would look a little bit better. I also changed the railing to be one that had a gap between the floor and the bottom of the railing, because I felt like there was a bit too much white in the back of the house, and that using that smaller railing would help with that some. So right now I am placing the couches that came with perfect patio stuff. I of course had to use those somewhere. So originally they were in that one corner right as you walk out of the sunroom, but I do move them over to the corner I just put the plant in. At this point, the building is just about done, and I hope that those of you who celebrate the 4th of July had a fun holiday weekend, and that everyone else, of course, had a lovely weekend too. This is where I'm going to leave off, so I hope you'll enjoy the rest of this video.